Mount Rainier, Washington, looming as a landmark of the Northwest. In its shadows, the snow-covered jagged peaks of the Cascade Mountain Range, offering skiers unparalleled snowfall and terrain at Crystal Mountain, Washington. It's the prime of the Northwest, and it's the sun-laden host today for the 9th event of the 1991 World Pro Mogul Tour. Hi, everybody. I'm Rod Elisha, and welcome to Crystal Mountain, Washington for the Miller Genuine Draft Carrera Cup event of the 91 Tour. Joining me for today's head-to-head skier action is Sandy Santucci, modeling the 92 line of White Stag World Pro Mogul Tour wear. And Sandy, it's a model day today after some 3 feet of new snow earlier in the week.
Right, and the snow here in the Northwest is very famous for being moisture laden, and I think the course is going to hold up very well. Much like when you take a snowball and compress it, it doesn't really fall apart, it gets harder, icier. I think the course is going to really hold up very well for the skiers, and what's that going to do is going to make it in the middle section there very good for those guys to turn on their skis, very quick edge to edge rapid fire turning, which the judges like to see. The jumps are huge ramps. We should be seeing good double and triple maneuvers, specifically down here before they run out into the finish line. It's going to be a great event.
I think it is going to be one of the best of the year. In fact, it may be the fastest course of the year with the biggest jumps. We'll see who's the matador on the moguls here on Bull Run when we come back to Crystal Mountain, Washington. Welcome back to the World Pro Mogul Tour and Crystal Mountain, Washington for the Miller Genuine Draft Carrera Cup. We're set for our top 8 skiers. In our first battle, it will be Cameron Boyle, the current overall tour leader, taking on Scott Skyman Harrington of the Nevika Scott team. And earlier today in the round of 16, the Skyman showed his stuff against Chris Horning. And Sandy, they don't call him the Skyman for nothing.
No, Rod, that's right. I mean, right here he sets up for a big double air at the very top, but it threw him off a little bit. He got back in his line, and he almost had to fight that almost entire top section until he got down into the flatter section here. You see him making some straighter turns in the fall line, skiing very well here. But he is a little bit of a reckless guy. He gets big airs, you'll see right here. But it's a little bit off-center, too. He lands a little crooked on that one, still pulls it together.
And now back to live action against Cameron Boyle. He beat Boyle last year in the opening event at Killington.
Well, look at that, a 720, and that's why they call him the Skyman, but it didn't help him there. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to psych out Cameron Boyle. That's the only way you're going to beat a guy like Cameron Boyle. But he got back right at the very top, and that sets the whole precedent for his run, and he's just fighting it completely down the entire way.
Well, it didn't work in the air, but now he's trying to get him with speed. Crosses the line first. Cameron with a big air there on the bottom. But I believe the solid fundamentals, once again,
That's
from
right.
Cameron Boyle, will win. And Sandy, how much did the degree of difficulty from Harrington's air figure in?
Well, as you see, it was a very close competition, and that's exactly why it was close. The degree of difficulty on the 720 is, right up there. Is probably the hardest one. You'll see right here as he goes to plant for this, his second axis, he's off. He lands on his uphill ski, and right away he's fighting to get back on his skis, and he's basically just tumbling down the course. He sees Cameron blow by him right here. His only chance at this point is perfect turns and speed.
Next up in the round of 8, it's Dean the Machine Murphy, a 34-year-old from Snowbird, Utah, versus a youngster on the tour, the new breed of bump skier, Chris Carson. And earlier this afternoon in the round of 16, Carson topped Jerry Crawford, another one of the youngsters on the tour.
Yeah, Crawford started out very well, but right there after his landing, he went right off, DQ'd. Crossing the center line is Chris Carson with that beautiful style of his, quiet upper body, just skied down knowing he had it, move ahead into the next round.
Nice big air to finish it off too. Chris Carson, our winner. And now Carson back to live action against Dean Murphy. Two opposite sides of the Mogul Tour, a youngster versus the Tour veteran.
And if Dean Murphy could just get some big air, he would be in there every week. But you see these bumps are really flattened out, and they're kind of like wide in between the troughs there, especially in that top section there. You saw Murphy almost making like GS turns right there, got back a little bit on his air. But Chris Carson, just magnanimous air there, just huge. Guy is amazing, Rod.
Almost lost it at the line, but a nice consistent run for Chris Carson, and you see on his face, he feels he's won it.
Right here, we see Chris Carson get a nice pop. Don't quite know what to call that jump yet, but it's one of Chris's own favorites. He lands very well in the fall line, keeps it very together. Again, he's got a very quiet upper body, which makes a big difference in these kinds of bumps here. And watch as we see him setting up for that jump, a daffy, twister, spread. Unbelievable. What height this guy can get.
Almost lost it at the line, but good enough to win for Chris Carson. Our next two combatants, Dave Hill from Boyle, Colorado, taking on Mark Dufour, the Flying Frenchman. And in the round of 16, a tough challenge for Dufour took on a skier with a very similar style, Jeff McKittrick, known as the Wild Man.
They're both wild men. They both like the air right out of the start. McKittrick with a helicopter and that patented Dufour air, but McKittrick battling his landing and just was off balance from the get-go. That didn't help him out much.
And now back to live action, Mark Dufour versus Dave Hill.
Well, when Mark Dufour pops that big air out of the top, the problem he has is making his landing. And you saw it right up there. He just wasn't in there in the lines properly. He's almost fighting to get back in the fall line. But here he is in the fall line, setting up good. A nice triple maneuver there. He's hanging in there against Hill.
Well, Dave is one of the most consistent skiers on the tour, but he's really been off the mark the last couple of weeks while Dufour is ascending the ladder.
That's true. Hill normally very quick. As you see, Dufour blew him away there. Well, coming out of the gate, both guys getting ready for that big top air. A daffy spread, French style. Dufour really knows how to pop that hip out, and that's what gets him up in that big air, but it hurt him right there because he got out of his fall line. Now he's fighting to get back in that fall line. He's pulling his way back in, and in the flat section of the course, he got it back together. Look at those knees grinding there.
Well, Dave Hill, a very consistent skier, but when you have Dufour popping big air like that, carrying speed like this, and really making some great turns, it's tough to beat.
What a pop there for a double twister spread. This guy has a unique way of putting together maneuvers in the air. That's why they call him the Flying Frenchman, and he definitely moves on, advances.
Still to come in the round of 8, our final battle, Bill Carrick versus Scott Rawls.
We're back as one of our spectators tries to make it to another vantage point to watch the competition.
And our final two competitors in the round of 8, Scott Rawls from Breckenridge, Colorado, off a 1.5-year hiatus from the tour, versus Bill Carrick from Vail, Colorado. And earlier this afternoon, Carrick scored the major upset of the afternoon, outdueling former World Cupper Robert Aguirre in what has become an air show. Big helicopter by Carrick right there.
Yeah, and a good spread eagle for Aguirre, and with Aguirre trailing Cameron Boyle in the overall point standings for that Toyota 4Runner, he's really got the pressure on him here to get into the top 8. It's really too bad. He had a good run. He was doing very well here. At this point, all he had to do was get off a good air on the bottom jump, and he's getting ready to set up for a helicopter, but he tumbles it down through the finish line and makes the most of it for the cameras.
Well, it was a major upset of the afternoon, and Carrick tried to carry the intensity and momentum into this matchup with Scott Rawls.
Carrick right out of the gate throwing a nice helicopter, lands it very well as Scott Rawls pops one of his patented nice big spread eagles. But Carrick is having a little bit of problems now in the midsection of the course. He's almost like trying to find a line. He's getting jostled around pretty badly, whereas Scott Rawls is just skiing very smooth and not big air, but good air.
Well, Bill Carrick's first taste of the round of 8 doesn't look good. A nice, consistent run by Scott Rawls. Very smooth turns all the way down.
And the judges do go with Scott Rawls, who did indeed have a very clean run, very consistent. Again, you see him setting up for that air. He didn't get big air up here, but the point is that he got good air, and he landed it cleanly, staying in the course in the fall line, whereas Carrick was having all kinds of problem after he landed that very good helicopter up on top.
Well, the pressure of a veteran competitor like Scott Rawls and his first taste of the round of 18, really a little bit too much for Carrick. We've cut the field to 4. Our semifinals will pit Cameron Boyle versus Chris Carson, and Mark Dufour will take on Scott Rawls. Welcome back to beautiful Crystal Mountain, Washington for the World Pro Mogul Tour Miller Genuine Draft Carrera Cup. Cameron Boyle getting himself ready for his semifinal run against Chris Carson, a tour rookie on the rise and a winner of one event this year. They're ready in the starting gate. It will be Cameron Boyle on your left and Chris Carson on your right.
And Carson knows what he has to do against Cameron Boyle, and that is ski very good, consistent fall line skiing with some big air, and they both got big air out of the gates there. And Cameron Boyle, just look at that. I mean, this is how moguls are supposed to be skied, straight down that fall line. Cameron Boyle, unbelievable, with another double maneuver in the mid-course right through the flats, and he is skiing unbelievable. Chris Carson had a rough time of it.
Well, Carson was beaten by Boyle every time out this year, except for once, and that's when he went on to win the championship at Keystone. This time it looked like Boyle had the better run straight down the hill.
And the judges, I think, agree by a pretty wide margin there. Let's take a look at the replay. Cameron Boyle sets up perfectly for that jump. Nice double maneuver, spread twister, and lands right in the trough, using that trough to get him down into the fall line. What you're seeing right now is skiing at its best. Mogul skiing at its finest. Right here, both guys, again, in the dual format. Chris Carson with one of those things that he does so well, we don't know what to call it yet, but he lost his line right there, and that was pretty much the problem that he had. He was fighting from that landing on, Rod.
And that brings us to Mark Dufour, the Flying Frenchman, has moved into the round of 4, but a tough task ahead of him with Scott Rawls, as they both are ready on the starting gate and out.
And Dufour right off that top jump, which really basically sets up the entire run. And Dufour really got in the fall line there, and he's just blowing by Rawls. That's what it takes to intimidate Scott Rawls.
Well, you know Dufour is going to have better air. Coming up to his second one right here, a nice double spread.
And he got big air there, and he's definitely going to win the air judge votes. So that's not going to be a problem. Let's see what the judges say here.
Well, I really think that it was a more consistent run from Mark Dufour. He had better turns, better air, and better speed.
Yes, indeed he did, and he has basically aspired to this position at this point in the competition series. Dufour has been so close throughout the season, and today he's got that taste of victory. Out in slow motion replay again, setting the tone with that frogman walk that he does up there, French style. Dufour really grinding again those knees and the bumps, using the moguls to slow down and check his speed. This is what mogul skiing is all about. And Rawls over there is not doing all that bad himself either, but I think the air is what really hurt him.
Yeah, and Scott Rawls really not used to having that much speed pressure put on him. The first jump gave Dufour a straight launch, and he went right past Scott Rawls.
That's
Scott
right.
Saw it.
That's right, exactly. Launched him out there from the start, set the tone early on.
Well, there's still more to come in the Miller Genuine Draft Carrera Cup. Our finals with Cameron Boyle and Mark Dufour.
Yeah.
Now we are ready for the finals, and the smiling face of Frenchman Mark Dufour. Although this is a very serious run against Cameron Boyle, the current tour leader, and Cameron with a huge air up top.
Again, setting the tone for the competition right there. Cameron Boyle exploding off that top jump and landing right in the fall line, and Mark Dufour right there. Too bad he got back on his skis, but Cameron Boyle now knows that he is getting that much closer to that forerunner.
Couple of more turns and into the finish area, and Cameron Boyle is the champion at Crystal Mountain, Washington. Well, Dufour gave up earlier, but now he's making his way down the course as Cameron Boyle goes into his victory celebration. Here comes Dufour with a crowd-pleasing air to finish it off. He can't be disappointed with second place. That's the highest he's been this year.
A dynamite air on the top, setting the tone for Cameron Boyle as he uses those moguls the way they were meant to be used.
Well, great speed and line selection, a little bit off on the bumps after the jump, but really that was the precursor to this win as he exploded off of that jump, exploded for a second air there. Dufour was out of it. Cameron Boyle wins. Let's go to the winner's circle in Sandy.
Thanks, Rod. With me indeed is a familiar face in the victory circle 4 times this season, Cameron Boyle. You had a rough day today. The top round of 16 was some very competitive skiing.
Yeah, I almost didn't make it past the round of 32 against Todd Deemer. He had a hell of a race against me, and it was only a 1-point decision. After that, my draw was just stacked up with all good skiers, and I think Frenchie may have had me there in the last one, but he didn't hold it together. And once I seen him go down, I just kind of lightened up and just got it to the end and got the job done.
Skyman Harrington threw a 720 against you in the top jump. What does that do to your psyche when you're coming down the course?
I didn't know Scott was going to do it. I didn't know until after the race was over. I rode back up the lift with Scott, and then I found out that he had thrown a 720 against me. And that's Scotty for you, you know. He's not scared of air at all.
But Dufour, he really was putting it to you there in the final run. Had he not gone down, it might have been a different story, Cameron.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say what he was doing, but I know Mark really well. You know, we do a lot of skiing together during the week on the tour, and yeah, he's definitely a threat at any moment.
All right, the winner here from Crystal Mountain, defending champion from last season too, Cameron Boyle.